Hey, welcome to Gen X Amplified episode number 3, where today it's all about business, love, and your big dreams. You ready? Let's do it.
We all have unique experiences that no one else has and no one else will. And so we have the ability to curate that and share that and apply that in a way like no one else can. And so we all have the ability to be world class.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified. Really excited about this episode today because my guest today is an entrepreneur, author, television host, speaker, and life coach. He is the founder of a top-rated international matchmaking and coaching agency. He is also the author of the best-selling book, It's Complicated, But It Doesn't Have to Be, a modern guide to finding and keeping love. Wow. He is the host of TV One's Our World with Black Enterprise and the host and creator of the very popular Mentor Monday series on the Spreecast platform, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders sharing practical advice for your big dreams. He is also a husband and proud father of 2 boys. Many people call him the modern day Hitch, but I also call him a Gen Exceptional leader. Everyone, please welcome Paul Carrick Brunson. Paul, what's going on, man?
That was a serious introduction, man. That was good stuff.
Well, the subject is serious and it's good stuff. So, hey, it warrants a decent introduction at least.
Yeah. You know what's pretty cool about these introductions?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 6 years into this new career, right?
Right.
And at the start, I remember my very first, at that time, it was a Blog Talk Radio interview that I did. The very first, very first interview. And there was no bio like that. It was it's good. As time was going by, the bio was getting longer. That's a good thing.
I know. So like 10 years from now, you may have just a podcast episode just for the Paul bio, right?
That would be pretty cool.
Cool, man. So as actually, I was just thinking about having you on. And again, this is a special moment for me because not only, as I became and I transitioned from the corporate world, worked for some pretty good companies and been blessed to have had some good experience, but jumped into the entrepreneurial space. And I stumbled on your story and what you've done. And we, based on like the things that you have posted about on your blog and some of the interviews that I saw you on, we share a lot of the similar people that we admire, whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk, Michael Hyatt, and what have you. And I was very intrigued by your story. And so this is a great moment for me just to have you on and just to chat more about your insights. But speaking of story, what I want to start off with, and we're all about helping, especially Gen Xers, understand the power in their personal story and using that story and their purpose for them to achieve their goals. I want to start with your personal story, but specifically, Paul, let's talk about that transformational period that led you to becoming the entrepreneur and leader in the coaching and even the social media space that you are today.
Sure. So many different, I would call them transformational moments, right? I feel like it's a trail of transformation. And at the end of the day, we're all evolving, right? Every day we're changing. But for me, when I look back, I'd say that there's probably 3 seminal moments that kind of made me the person that I am today. The first actually was in witnessing my grandfather. So my background is I'm Jamaican. I was born here, but my parents are from Jamaica.
All right.
That's right. Shout out to all the Jamaicans.
Shout out.
And or should I say, light your lighter?
Oh, is that it?
You throw the lighter up. But so my grandfather is from Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay.
And he, I watched him really struggle for his entire life. And he unfortunately passed away just 2 years ago now. But I watched him struggle as an entrepreneur, always attempting to make something, to create something. You know, he was the quintessential Jamaican, right? He had 8 jobs, like literally.
Well, now is that truism? Is that true about the whole multi-job?
Oh man, I remember distinctly sitting down, telling my grandfather that I had like 4 or 5 things I was doing, and he called me lazy. It was only 4 or 5. He was like, "Boy, I'm 85 years old and I got 8 jobs."
That's funny.
But just watching him, attempt and try, but never able to really materialize anything significant, and that made a huge impression on me.
Okay.
The second was when I was in college, and this is a lot of people say, Paul, like, did this really happen? Like, this truly happened. Is when I was a freshman in college, it was the first time I'd ever read a book cover to cover. No exaggeration. Like, so never in high school or middle school, I had Cliff Notes, and,
right,
that type of thing, but never had I read a book cover to cover. And I read a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Great book.
Great book, right? By Reginald Lewis. And
right.
By the way, if you're a white guy listening, it's a book for you too, right? It's just simply about how this particular person, Reginald Lewis, who's African-American, right? How he kind of just overcame these incredible odds and became a very successful businessman. And that story in particular, his story, I think was life-changing for me, and then lastly, the last kind of piece was when I was, this is from about 2003 to 2008, before I started my current career.
Okay.
I was, still being Jamaican. So I had graduated from undergrad. I went to business school. I was managing money for a very wealthy Turkish family at the time. And in the evenings, I was moonlighting. I had a nonprofit organization, and we were doing test preparation for low-income Black and Latino students. And what I realized, what picked up was the fact that a lot of these kids, we were sitting there focused on their education and their test preparation and all of these things that were happening outside of the household. But I just realized how important what was happening in the household was, and how it made a significant impact on their lives, and their social ineptness, maybe in terms of a negative impact academically. Mm-hmm. And it was just really this transfer. I would say it was this. The reason why it was a transformative moment is because it was a time where I realized how important your home is,
right,
and how important the context is in terms of the content that you bring into your life and what you surround yourself with. So I'd say those 3 moments collectively really helped to inform me and help me to this day.
Wow. So you said the first one was, excuse me, witnessing your grandfather, who was the quintessential entrepreneur, and the path that he took and all the things that he did. And then the moment in college, you said reading Reginald Lewis's book cover to cover. Absolutely. And then that last, I guess, really transformative period of witnessing the youth without the parent household, the dual parent household, and how that impacted their lives. That really shaped you.
Absolutely.
Right now, did that moment, especially that last moment, was that the moment that really triggered the idea of, hey, you know what, I'm going to become a matchmaker?
It was.
Yeah.
It really was. It
right.
was in that camp. What was fascinating is in 2008, we were running a summer camp, and this summer camp was, we were teaching math and science and actually all the STEM categories, right? Mm-hmm, science, technology, education, engineering and mathematics. And it was really interesting because we had 100 students, and not one of these 100 students lived with 2 parents. Like, not one of them. They all live with their mother or their grandmother or their big sister or their aunt. And very few live with men. And a lot of the camp counselors were joking me. They were saying, Paul, you're so concerned about this. Maybe you'll just become a hitch and just hook them all up one day. And I was like, nah, that's kind of corny. I don't want to be Hitch. And my wife and I, what we started doing that summer is we started, kind of riffing off that idea of Hitch. We started inviting these singles over to our house. And we would play games and, play, just hang out. And the whole idea was that we wanted to give these people who were single an opportunity to not just interact outside of a nightclub, but we wanted to give them an opportunity to see that my wife and I could that we were best friends, that we could communicate, but at the same time, we could debate. And it was important, I think, for people to see other people in love. Right. Because, we'll be what we really believe. And if we don't believe that love exists, then, it's very hard to attract that into our lives. But if we do believe that it exists, it makes it much easier. And so we did that for a summer. And by the end of the summer, we had couples that were getting together, that were dating exclusively. One couple wanted to get engaged. And so
now these are couples that actually met at the events that you and your wife were hosting.
Yes, they were just coming to the house. Okay. Right? I mean, we had like this open house basically. And to this day, we actually do, so on Sundays, if you're in DC and you need chicken and waffles, our house, right? That's how my wife does it. But yeah, it was like Friday, Saturday nights. We would always have this kind of open house. This was before we had kids, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so I put my business cap on by the end of the summer. And I said, hey, hold on for a second. This is a good business idea, but it wasn't anything I wanted to execute. So we reached out to matchmakers because we thought there were some matchmakers that would be able to take the idea and maybe license it from us. And none of these matchmakers would call us back. Like not one of them would communicate back to us. And so we found that there was going to be a conference in New York at the end of 2008. I went to the conference and really the rest is history. I sat in that conference and realized that I was unique. There was no one in that room who was male. No one was under the age of 40. No one was black, Wow. And I realized that was an opportunity. And that's when I became a matchmaker.
Wow. That's a classic story. I mean, you obviously saw the opportunity. I mean, all of those categories you just mentioned, no one was in that space that fit your profile. So did you at that point, did you go through, try to get funding, or did you bootstrap it? Was it something that you continued to work your day job? How did that transition into, the money making matchmaking agency that you have now?
So at that time, we completely bootstrapped. What's interesting is I was I did 2 years of investment banking outside of undergrad. Okay. And so I was super familiar with, raising money and equity. And I decided, and actually, even to go back is when I left investment banking, I started a company and we raised money in that company. And one of the lessons I learned is that never again am I going to raise money. And the reason why is because I'm a control freak. Right. And giving up equity is literally giving up ownership. And unless you are, attempting to build something at ridiculous scale, I think that there are many, many, many methods to capitalizing your business. And so what we did, and when I say we, is my wife and I, we were a team, right? So we liquidated all of our retirement funds. We sold.
Wow. That's non-conventional.
Oh yeah. I mean,
many people do it, but
you're absolutely right. I'd say that fewer people do it. Whenever I tell that story, especially in a big room, at least 90% of them look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what? Like, what? Right. My wife was working at the time, right? We didn't have children at the time. But then to be quite frank with you, we would run out of cash on occasion. And when we ran out of cash on occasion, we would literally let bills lag. So we would let the mortgage lag, or we'd let the light bill lag, we let those things lag. And I think the key point to all of that is if you are passionate about your idea, right? And you see you see traction, right? So it's not just blind passion, but it's passion, and there's traction that comes with what you're doing. Then you have to pursue it by any means necessary. And that's exactly what we did. And so we were able to we spent maybe the first year. So it was 2008 when I quit. So all of 2009, all the way through mid 2010, we didn't generate any revenue. Right. Not $1. You
just live out the 401k or other means of income.
Oh yeah, it was by hook or crook.
Yeah,
It really was. I mean, it was like I sold my car. I did everything that I could to get $1. And this is the interesting point, though, is that we did not make money because we didn't attempt to. Right. I'm sorry, because we did not attempt to. So literally, we had no product or service that we were selling in 2009. What we were doing in that time was strictly diligence. We were going to every conference we could, reading every book we could. I went back and took classes in sociology, right? The whole idea was to learn. And that's something that I picked up from my investment banking days, is that diligence is everything. Diligence is everything. It might be, I think this might be, I'll probably butcher this. This could be an Abraham Lincoln quote, but, I think it was, if I'm going to spend, if I've got basically 7 years to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 5 just sharpening my axe.
Yes. And I think that is Abraham Lincoln, or I will vouch for that on this podcast.
All right, good stuff. Or we're both wrong. It's all good.
It's all good. No, I love that.
We're right all the time. But I think there's a lot to be said by that. And so we spent that all of 2009 and half of 2010 just doing diligence, just doing research, just doing prep.
Now, wait, just what's fascinating to me also is, and this is so great, especially for this audience, particularly people that are 35 to 50, Gen Xers, many of us, if you will, are married, want to start businesses, want to build brands, may have kids. I heard you mention the word "we" at least 20 times. I heard you mention my wife liquidated 401k, or we liquidated 401k. She, we. Can you just dive a little bit more into that? Because I think there's power in those words, because many lessons in entrepreneurship, especially when you're married, you have to have that communication. You have to be one when it comes to venturing out, because it gets hard, man. Like you said, the bills need to be paid. You're struggling, even though you guys didn't have kids, but still you have to have that support. Was that immediate from your wife, or did you guys talk about it? Did you have to convince her, like, babe, I want to do this? Or was this both a vision that was shared by both you and your wife?
We've been partners, right, in life.
Okay.
And when this idea came about, it wasn't like I just kind of dropped it on her out the blue. Like, here's a business plan I want to do. We communicate every day about everything. And so as the idea began to, as the seed came into my mind, and then it began to kind of like percolate a little bit, and, through weeks and through months, she was already in the discussion. So it wasn't me saying, okay, let's do this. It was us coming to a realization that we should do this.
Got it.
And, communication really is everything, just to not even to do a crazy tangent, but it's funny because, I've been married now for this year, it'll be 15 years.
Okay.
And when a lot of people hear that, they're like, wow, and you guys still like each other, you guys still have sex, yeah, we do all those things. But nothing is more important than our communication. Now,
did you have to work on that, or was it to come natural?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had to work. I think our first 5 years were disastrous,
Wow.
Or I wouldn't say disastrous. I'd say year 3 and 5 were disastrous.
Okay.
So we had to continually work. And I think a lot of that has to do with having a complementary personality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my wife is very much of a supporter personality type. I'm very much of an analyst and promoter personality type. So it's important to be complement. But to get back to that, your question of, you know, the importance of having that other person is partnership is everything, and your support system is everything. And I don't think that it is a fluke why most of the successful companies have co-founders. It's because you need to have that yin to your yang. You know, you need to have someone who can offset your weaknesses and your strengths. You need to have someone who you can sit and basically, you know, vent to. You know, you need to have that. And at the end of the day, if you believe that you can launch something, grow something, you know, solo, or should I say independent, is you're fooling yourself. You need to have a partner. And I'm not saying you need to have a romantic partner to do it, but you need to have a partner to do it.
Okay. Wow. No, that's so true. Whether it's your wife or some sort of partner. And I think having your wife, your spouse, even if you are, obviously, if you're a female listening in, your spouse in general, that's powerful, because a lot of times I've witnessed many conversations or been in conversations where, you know, people just don't get that support, either through fear, or they don't really believe in the project that their spouse is so passionate about. But I think that's magic when both can share that same type of confidence as you and your wife did.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right. So you guys launched a matchmaking agency. It's called the Paul Carrick Brunson Agency. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we go by just PCBA for short. But
PCBA.
Yes.
Now, right after that time, I believe, or during that time, you had started, or you were discovered by the team member of some unknown journalist named Oprah Winfrey, right? and you kind of knew her, or you worked with her a little bit. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. That was really smooth. The journals that nobody knows, right? Yeah, I mean, that was life-changing. I
can imagine.
and you know what was crazy about that too is it came literally a week after we officially launched our business.
Wow. Wait, so you got discovered by the OWN people just after a week? I mean, so what? You have to tell us that story.
Hold on, rewind.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, man, because so when we started, right? So to go back to kind of 2000, late 2009, early 2010, we're still doing our quote unquote diligence. And what that really meant is we were taking on pro bono clients.
Okay.
And doing matchmaking and doing relationship coaching with these pro bono clients. And at that time, it was ridiculously uncool to be doing this, right? You think about even online dating right now, maybe 50% of people think that it's sketchy. Another 50% say, you know what, it's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, shows like Millionaire Matchmaker, those shows, like it didn't exist at the height of its popularity then. And so matchmaking was looked severely down upon, right? And especially in the African American community, where I was literally the first full-time Black matchmaker. Like, so the first.
Wow.
It's crazy.
The very first. Why there was no one before you, not to that scale, at least.
No, there was was there a full-time African American matchmaker. It's documented in we have 3 governing bodies in the Matchmaking Institute. You know, never has one come across anyone's radar screen or registered. You know, I think people kind of dabbled in it part-time, but never did someone actually go full-time, create an organization specifically focused around a matchmaking. And so, you know, so at that time, like I was ridiculed, like literally I was ridiculed. And so I was trying to figure out a way to kind of get my voice out there and to break through a lot of the noise. And so my wife and my mother were saying, hey, you know, what you should do is, why don't you just create a video? Like, you just do a video series. You know, YouTube is kind of hot. We'll just do something on YouTube. And so I created a series called The Modern Day Matchmaker. And man, nobody would watch it. It had like no views. Like every time we would put out a video, we'd get like, 10 views, 11 views. And I knew at least out of those 11, 10 of those were my mother, and so,
right.
But long story short, one of those views was coming from the Oprah Winfrey network.
Oh, wow.
And not only was one coming from that network, but one was also coming from a producing partner that they had at BBC.
Okay.
And so literally within a week of publishing these videos, I started getting inquiries, not just from the Oprah Winfrey Network, but from other networks and from other production companies. And the reason why I think this is such an important story is because I had no desire to do anything in television. I had no desire. I didn't even think. I mean, our goal was to create the top DC area matchmaking organization. Mm-hmm. That's all we were trying to do, and when these inquiries started coming in, at first we kind of rebuffed them. But then secondly, what we did is, we did our research and we went out, we spoke with them, but we were prepared when we spoke with them. One thing about, I think what we all know about Oprah Winfrey and her team is that, she doesn't do slack.
Right.
She doesn't do just ordinary, right? Mm-hmm. She does extraordinary. And the key when we walked into that office is that we were able to show her and explain to her and convey to her that this wasn't just a hobby, but that I had spent the last year and a half just studying this industry, that there were no training programs on,
mm-hmm.
And so I think that it goes to show really two things. One is the importance of diligence, the importance of preparation,
right?
And also it goes to show that quantity is really secondary to quality. And so when I was getting 11, 12 views, and even people were kind of ridiculing me for, hey, what do you're spending $2,000 to create these videos and no one's watching them. Like, why are you doing that? And it wasn't for the quantity, it was for the quality. Mm-hmm. We got some great quality views that ended up, getting me a deal with Oprah. And I ended up I hosted 2 shows with her, and was able to
wow.
Learn so much from her and work with her for 3 years. So it was one of these where it was looking back, I can, I didn't see it then, but looking back, I understand now that diligence is important, mm-hmm. and quality over quantity is important.
Wow. So during that's powerful. During those times when you were probably hitting refresh on YouTube, like every 10 minutes just to get the view numbers up, and you were a little discouraged, you never would have imagined that one view, that one person would lead to a partnership with Oprah Winfrey. That's great. And that's a key lesson. It only takes one. But you have to take action. And that's what you did. You took action. So you built the matchmaking agency. You did the stint on OWN, and looks like you built a very successful matchmaking agency. You have a staff, or is it primarily just you and your wife, or?
So we have a staff of 12. And
awesome.
Yeah. And what's really cool is I'm no longer actually in the day-to-day operations of the agency.
Okay.
There's a woman by the name of G. Sanders, who's the managing director for the agency. And she runs the agency, and that allows me to do, to really be Jamaican and have 8 more jobs.
Getting back to your roots.
That's right.
Now, that's a great transition, because you mentioned you're no longer hands-on. You have G, which leads you to these other projects that I noticed that you're doing, which is pretty awesome. Let's talk a little bit more about Mentor Monday, which personally I've watched many of them. I'm a big fan of Spreecast. I remember when you were doing the early just kind of Q&A, calling in, and you were pretty much taking questions and doing the little dance contest and hearing Poison by BBD.
That's right. That's
Oh yeah. I remember that. And now looks like you guys have just expanded a little more. Most recently, depending upon when this airs, it's going to air a little later, but I know you just recently interviewed Sheena Allen and some more people. You have some great guests. And can you talk a little bit more about the why? I'm really big on start like with the why, a big Simon Sinek fan, obviously, but really, can you really talk more about the purpose of Mentor Monday and how it's going thus far? Sure. And I'm sorry, and your vision moving forward.
Sure. So, Mentor Monday started like a lot of the projects that I work on, and that is just simply a little itch, and I just kind of scratched the itch a little bit.
Okay.
And so, I had received a lot of inquiries, in particular from men, actually saying, "Hey, Paul, can you be my mentor?" And I have 27 mentees, and so I didn't have the capacity to take on anyone else. But I said, "Hey, you know what I'll do is I'll just kind of find a video format, and I'll go live on the video format for half an hour to an hour and just answer questions for you." Mm-hmm. And a lot of them replied back. They were like, "Cool." And so we did the first one 2 years ago, and there were 30 people that jumped on, and I was just doing Q&A with about 30 people. And then 2 weeks later, I said, okay, I'm going to come back. And I did another Q&A, and maybe about 50, 60 people show up then. And I quickly realized a couple of things. One is that I just enjoyed what I was doing, right? Mm-hmm. There was no agenda to it. It wasn't like, okay, how do we make money from this? Or let's attempt to build community. Or there was no agenda. It was just simply, let me answer these questions that people have. Right. Let me fill this void of mentor that they don't have in their lives, and then so I always scratch the itch, and then the second thing is I listen, and I think listening is everything. People will tell you exactly what they want, and if you have the capacity to deliver on it, especially if you believe you can deliver on it in a unique way or a world-class way, then there's a significant opportunity there. And so as I was listening, to the audience, I realized that they wanted information from beyond what I could deliver, right? Mm-hmm. So beyond my personal capacity, they wanted information. So I knew I needed to bring on guests. Secondly is they wanted specifically content focused around not just Black, but I'll call it multicultural issues.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, let's focus on that. And then also it was it was shaped around not necessarily business or entrepreneurship, but more so just folks who were ambitious, and folks who wanted to climb, whether it was growing their own business or climbing the corporate ladder at a Fortune 500. Mm-hmm. And so from there, I listened, started bringing on guests, started making sure that we had the themes that the audience wanted, then got sharper with our format, then got sharper with our delivery, then started bringing on producers to help produce the show, then started building out complementary components, so offline components to help build the community, like our weekend startup movement. Mm-hmm. And, last night, for example, you just mentioned Sheena. I mean, we had over 5,000 people live last night.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that the most you've had or close to, or?
That was the most that we've had live at one time.
Wow.
And, to think that many people show up at the same time, right? It just goes to show that, that not only were we listening, but we were executing on the listening. And so you asked about what the vision is. The vision now is to become, a top source of information specifically around the top entrepreneurs and thought leaders of today who will share practical advice, right, for the big dreams of multicultural entrepreneurs. And I know that sounded like a big, mouthful, that wasn't a succinct elevator pitch, but that's in essence what we're doing. We're pinging on all of those areas. And we're not just doing that. We're not just doing that via Spreecast, right? We're launching a live series. We're launching actually probably the biggest project that I'm working on right now is around furthering that community aspect, right, of the audience. And so I'm really excited by this. And I'll just, give you my quick lesson from this is that, I never would have gotten to Mentor Monday without going through becoming a matchmaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never would have become a matchmaker without going through, doing the tutoring with those kids for all those years, and I never would have gotten that through, without reading the Reginald Lewis book, and when it got for that. And so it just goes to show you that, everything that we do in life is, you can look at it as a failure if it didn't go your way, but more importantly, you should look at it as a lesson and as a building block. And I think that it's all those building blocks that's led me to this obsession I have with Mentor Monday right now.
No, Mentor Monday is definitely awesome. Again, I've watched many episodes, and just talk a little bit more specifically for my audience. Now it's on Spreecast. Can you tell what gravitated you towards Spreecast? And it's live, but you can also watch replays, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question, because we spent a lot of time trying to figure out why Spreecast. There's so many platforms, so many awesome platforms. I mean, there's, podcasting, or, for iTunes or Stitcher, you could do SoundCloud, you could do, Google Hangouts. I mean, you could, there's so many things that you could do. What we wanted to do is, to go back to, everyone has a brand, right? Everyone is and what's interesting is your brand is never what you say it is. It's only what other people say it is.
That's right.
And
as Jeff Bezos famously said, is what people say about you when you leave the room, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so what, listening, right, to what people said about me is, people were like, all right, Paul, what I think about you is, I think that you're informative, but you're entertaining, and there's a little slight bit of cutting edge, right? So you're informative, you're entertaining, and there's that cutting edge. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to try to find a platform that would allow me to basically convey all those things, Right. So, for example, you and I could sit right now and we could tell a joke, right? We could do something really funny, and it could play out well. But if it's live, there's so much more room that we have, right? There's so much more depth that we have, which is why, shows like Saturday Night Live do so well, right? And so we wanted to have a live experience, wanted to have something that allowed for that engagement, wanted to have something that allowed us, and that engagement led to the informative side, wanted to have something that was cutting edge. And so Spreecast was recommended to us, and then the team at Spreecast then reached out to us specifically. And that was just incredible.
Was this after you've had some episodes out in the market, or?
This was after, when did this happen? This was 2 years ago. So I think the reason why they reached out is we had, by then, so 2 years ago, we had built a little bit of a platform in social, through Twitter and Facebook. And I think at that time, there was a television. Was there a television show? Yeah, at that time, I was doing a lot of daytime guesting on different daytime talk shows. Mm-hmm. And I think they reached out because they were reaching out to quote unquote influencers. And so we hadn't yet launched Mentor Monday at that time, but we just discussed the idea with them. And they got behind it. And so Mentor Monday, that's the reason why we selected that platform. And really what it is in its essence is, it is a now weekly, right, Spreecast. So a weekly a live video stream that you can engage in a chat room with today's top entrepreneurs and thought leaders. And we're specifically focusing on those thought leaders mentoring us, giving us advice on how we can achieve our big dreams. That's really what Mentor Monday is all about.
No, that would be so relevant to especially this audience, especially if they're looking for inspirational content, valuable content. And every Monday now, you said weekly on Spreecast, and it's live. They just need I guess an internet hookup and a computer, and they're off to the races, right?
Right. Or you could watch on your mobile.
Awesome.
Yeah, most of our views actually are mobile views.
Mobile? Okay. Is there a Spreecast app they can just download and?
They can download the Spreecast app. You can also just go to Spreecast.com.
Okay.
But if you go to the easiest is Spreecast.com/users USERS/Paul PAUL -Carrick. Seems kind of convoluted, but it's Spreecast.com/users/Paul -Carrick. You can get our full inventory, so our whole archive, all the replays there. And if you're having a hard time doing that, just go to Spreecast.com and in the search bar, put in Paul Carrick Brunson, CARRICK Brunson, and it'll pull up for you.
And for our audience, we'll have all that in the show notes as well. So when you go to the show notes, we'll have links to that platform. So talk briefly just about your most recent stint, TV1's Our World with Black Enterprise. How's that going? And how did you get that gig quickly? And what's your main takeaway from interviewing all these great people?
So how I got the gig is Mentor Monday.
Big lesson there.
Yeah,
it's weird. Everything led to reading the book, the camp, OWN, Mentor Monday, and wow, TV1.
Building blocks.
Okay, all right.
So I, from what I hear, it was Mentor Monday. A lot of the Black Enterprise group watched Mentor Monday and liked what they saw on Mentor Monday. And so the show is really awesome. The show is a show that I've been watching for years. Mm-hmm. Originally it was it goes back, I think, over 8 years. Ed Gordon hosted it originally for many years, and Mark Lamont Hill came in and hosted it. And what it's about is it's just great stories that are happening all over the world in the African American community, whether it's entertainment, whether it's business, whether it's humanitarian. And I get a chance to go all around the world and bring these stories to you every week on TV1. And we're also syndicated in 152 markets. So in places like New York, on Sunday, on ABC at 1 p.m. we're there. Mm-hmm. Or DC on Sunday, ABC, 1 p.m. We're right there. And so it's a great to And if you like inspiring television, I encourage you to watch it.
Well, and just going back to your story and all the things that you've done, you got the PCB agency, Mentor Monday, Our World. And on top of all that, everyone, I mean, Paul is literally, he's out there when it comes to amplifying and building and amplifying his brand on these social platforms. I think most recently, he was recognized as one of the top Facebook pages to follow by Post Planner. I mean, that's a great honor. I mean, his pictures literally side by side with some of the big heavyweights, whether it's Michael Hyatt, Jay Baer, Chris Brogan. So Paul is putting in the work. Can you just talk a little bit about, especially for Gen Xers, leaders, entrepreneurs, people who want to start businesses, who may have families, but are struggling with defining their purpose, building their brand, promoting that brand through these new tools. There's a new social network coming out every month, it seems. Can you just provide a little insight to that 35 to 50-year-old, that Gen Xer who wants to do those things, who want to really define, okay, what is my business? What is my purpose? And how do I move forward with promoting that and telling my story via social, at the same time balancing a family life, a husband or a wife or a child, because many of Gen Xers are raising Gen Zs, that, 6 to 17-year-old kid. Right.
Now, this is a big question. And I'm going to give you the answer that's the non-business answer.
Let's do it.
and that is, it all begins with you. So this sounds so ridiculously cliche, but I always like to say that just like you're sitting on an airplane and the flight attendant tells you before you take off, in case of an emergency, oxygen mask will drop, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you would apply it to the person next to you, right? I look at that oxygen mask just like the word love. And you have to first apply love to yourself before you apply it to anyone else, right? Your willingness to love anyone else will stop at your willingness to love yourself. And so what that means in terms of loving yourself is that means feeding your values. That means taking care of yourself spiritually, taking care of yourself mentally, taking care of yourself physically, which is where a lot of us let it go, right? And it begins with self. You're going to be no good to anyone else until you're good to yourself. So you've got to start there, right? You've got to, and don't feel guilty about it. I could recall times where, we've got our 1-year-old is crying, our 4-year-old's running around throwing Legos, all around the house. My wife looks like she's going to rip her hair out.
That sounds like my household, Paul.
and I say, you know what? I have to, I've got to go do this. Not like I'm going to leave the house, but I need to, for 30 minutes, no matter what, I need to make sure that I do this for me. Right? Because I will be no good to them unless I'm first good to me. And so that's the first place. That's not selfish. That's self-love. You need it. Then the next place is before you even get to, your business and your brand and all those. The next place is, make sure your home is right? You have to make sure that it's strong, that it's healthy, that it's positive. You have to make sure that it is, in terms of context, that it's organized. All of these kind of basics that we hear about that a lot of us, at least me in particular, I used to say, whatever, like my room doesn't need to be organized. I could sit here with my computer on top of all this trash and just, do my thing. No, I mean, you're much more efficient, right, when you have all of those things in place. And then once you got your self-love in place, and then once you've got your home organized and your home is harmonious, right, then from there, you could begin working on your business. And the real quick, I think, key or tip is you start small. You start with one thing. You mentioned, just for example, there's a new social platform coming out. It feels like every week. Absolutely, it feels like. And we feel pressured to be on every platform.
Right.
And I say the hell with that, right? Focus on one platform. Think about the skills that you have. Maybe you're witty, and you're witty in a way that it works on Twitter. Or maybe, you can deliver your words, you can wax so poetic that a podcast is for you, right? Whatever it may be, is you think about what your skill set is. Think about what you like, and that's what you go after. And you really try to master that. And my favorite word is world class. And the reason why is because to me, we all have the ability to be and I truly believe this, we all have the ability to be world class in something, right? We each have a unique skill set that no one else has. We all have unique experiences that no one else has and no one else will. And so we have the ability to curate that and share that and apply that in a way like no one else can. And so we all have the ability to be world class. The issue is that we like to just kind of dabble at everything. And so when I think back to, my history, for example, is I'll scratch the itch and then listen. I'll scratch the itch, but then look for traction. And if I'm listening and I'm not getting anything back, or I see that there's no traction, I pivot. And the key with entrepreneurship, and I see this among all of the top entrepreneurs, you just named so many great folks, from the Chris Brogans and the Michael Hyatts, is that what I see what these guys do, and women, what they all do is they all know how to listen and they all know how to pivot. And so just to, kind of summarize all of that is get your self-love right, right? Then get the home life right? Then from there, focus on one thing. And that one thing should be the one thing you believe you could be world class at. And look for traction. Look for a positive response. And if you don't get that, it doesn't mean that you completely shut it down and stop. It just means you pivot just slightly, and then you listen again, right? And then you look for the traction again. And then if it's not there, then you just pivot slightly. And you keep doing that again and again and again and again.
Wow, Paul, you just dropped some major value bombs, man. That we need a part 2 of this show to bring you back on. And that last point is so true. I'm a firm believer, and especially for entrepreneurs. I mean, we all have that entrepreneurial syndrome, that shiny object syndrome, where we want to chase the latest and greatest thing. And actually, there's a book that I read that's probably one of my favorite books this year, that I've read literally through Audible, was The One Thing. By Gary Keller.
Yeah.
And Jay, it's literally my favorite book this year. And I encourage everyone listening, go get that book. That book, and there's another book called Essentialism, which is also a great book that shares similar themes. But the one thing, focus on that one thing, because it is so easy to get distracted. But you're absolutely right. So we're going to wrap up. But there are two closing questions I like to ask all of my guests. The first one is we're going to have a little fun. And then the second one, we're going to end off with some more value bombs for the audience. So number one, Paul, if there was a song that would play every time you entered a room or when you walk down the street that perfectly fits you, the brand of Paul Carrick Brunson, what song would that be? Basically, what would be your own personal theme song and why?
It would definitely be, without question, You Don't Know by Jay-Z. Look, I just pulled it up on Spotify too. You know this. Turn my music high. That's it. That's it. You don't know. That's it.
Wow. Okay, that's a first for the Gen X Amplified podcast. We actually got the song.
Oh yeah,
in the podcast.
That's it right there.
I just hope Mr. Carter doesn't come and sue me, but it's all good.
I kept it under 7 seconds.
That's right. I love that. You don't know about. Okay. And then lastly, Paul, if there was a specific tool or resource, whether it's a mobile app, a book, or a website that you recommend, particularly to Gen Xers looking to further build their brand, looking to enhance their personal development or market their business, what would it be?
All right. I'm going to say the one tool that I believe no one has ever said before.
Oh, all right. I can't wait to hear this, man.
Your phone, the actual phone.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And you use it to call your mother. You use it to call your brother. You use it to call your wife. You use it to call your loved ones. That is it. That's all you have. That's all we have. That is it. Before we get to the business, that is that. And when the business is done, and I said this last night too on Mentor Monday, is that when we are on our deathbeds, right? When it is our time to go, I guarantee none of us are going to be thinking about, oh my God, I wish I sent more tweets, right. Or, I wish I closed that one deal. No, we're all only going to be thinking about our loved ones. And if that is what we're thinking about at probably our most critical moment in our life, then that's what we need to be thinking about more often every day in our life.
Wow. Okay. Nobody has said that. It's whoever you are, if it's your Galaxy 5, your phone, your iPhone 6 Plus, if you're old school, you're still rocking the BlackBerry. That's your tool, your phone. I love that. Paul, it's been a blast, man. Tell everyone the best way that they can find out more about you, your business, your brands, and all the things that you have coming up planned. How can they best connect with you?
I appreciate that opportunity. I would say at Paul C. Brunson is the best. And I'm at Paul C. Brunson across all the social platforms. And I try to be as responsive as possible. But, on any one of those, reach out to me. And I also use those to make sure that anything I'm doing, anything that's hot and upcoming, or something that someone else is doing that I think might be helpful for you, I make sure that I share it on those. So at Paul C. Brunson.
Awesome. Paul, you've provided a lot of valuable tips and tools and tactics, man. It's been great. Thanks so much for your time, for sharing that story with the Gen X Amplify community.
Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Okay, that was Paul C. Brunson. All right, that was a good conversation. That was a great conversation. It wasn't a good conversation. It was a great conversation. I've been really, as I mentioned this when I was chatting with Paul, I've been following him, a lot of his content and success for a little while. And when he agreed to be on the show, to say that I was elated is an understatement. We actually, again, we talked about this during the episode. We share a lot of the same interests or similar interests as far as people that we both follow as well in the social space, in the entrepreneurial space. And I'm really proud of what he's done with his matchmaking company and his experience working with Oprah Winfrey and the things he's doing now at TV One. So just a very smart guy. And more importantly, a great family man. Loving wife, 2 kids, so all good stuff. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show, because that's what this show is really all about. I hope you enjoyed the content and you got a lot from it. So if you did, please go over to genxamplified.com/003 to get all the show notes and the links to all the great stuff that we did discuss, that Paul and I discussed. And please go over to iTunes to subscribe to the show and give an honest rating and review. I say this every episode because it's important. I actually read all the reviews, and your feedback at the end of the day is what means the most to me, because I'm always going to strive to make this the best show that I can make it. And the only thing that matters is what you think of it. So I hope that we provided a lot of value. I hope that we were able to entertain you and inform. So please give your review, and don't forget to tell your friends and family members about Gen X Amplified, the podcast. And I hope that you guys have a great week, a great day, and keep listening in. We have more episodes coming up for you. So until we meet again, as always, all the best to your success. Take care.